He was just a single dad with a rusted-out sedan and a tie held together by a safety pin. He didn't drink, didn't make a scene, didn't fit in with the champagne crowd at the company party. But when the COO stumbled out the door, heels in hand and dignity in shreds, he was the only one who didn't look away. He drove her home in silence. No questions, no judgment, but what she said the next morning, that changed everything. They called him Reliable Rick at the office, half respect, half mocking nickname. Always early, always polite. The kind of guy who refilled the coffee machine even though it wasn't his job. The kind of guy you forget until you need something. He was a single dad, raising a 7-year-old daughter named Ellie in a one-bedroom apartment above a discount tire shop. Wore the same blazer to every office event. Never complained. But on the night of the company's annual holiday party, something happened that nobody, not even Rick, could have predicted. And it all started with a slurred whisper from his boss in the back seat of his rusted sedan. Her name was Veronica Dane, Chief Operating Officer. Ivy League. Red wine laugh and titanium spine. She ran the floor like a general and fired people like she was pruning roses. No one called her by her first name, not unless they were drunk, foolish, or both. Tonight she was all three. The party had gone late. Too late. People peeled off in Ubers, laughing and staggering into the night, glittering with leftover charm. Rick stayed behind, helping clear tables. That's when someone tapped his shoulder. "Hey, man," whispered Jordan from HR. "Veronica's not doing great. She's out front. No one wants to drive her." "You," Rick blinked. "You want me to take her home," Jordan grimaced. "I mean, she knows you. She won't bite." That wasn't reassuring, but Rick didn't argue. He just nodded, grabbed his keys, and walked out. She was slouched on the stone bench by the valet stand, one heel dangling, hair unpinned, makeup slightly smudged. "Veronica," he said gently, her head lolled up, eyes glazed. "Rick, let's get you home." She didn't protest. He opened the door like a chauffeur and helped her in. The car smelled faintly of crayons and apple juice. Ellie's doing. Veronica didn't seem to notice. They pulled away into the quiet city night. Christmas lights blinked from lampposts. The streets were mostly empty. Veronica stared out the window, then suddenly murmured, "Do you think I'm a terrible person?" Rick glanced at her. "Pardon," she turned to him, eyes too bright. "You heard me." Rick hesitated. "I think you're under a lot of pressure." That made her laugh, not a pretty sound, more like a bark. "Diplomatic, you'd make a good assistant." "I'm a regional project lead," Rick said, not bitterly, just stating a fact. "Right," she said. "Forgot." Silence stretched between them for a while. Then she asked softer, "Why are you nice to me?" Rick kept his eyes on the road. "Because you're a person." Another silence. Then, "I fired someone today, on a Friday, before a holiday." Rick said nothing. Veronica slumped back against the seat. She had 2 kids, twins. I still remember their names from the emergency contact forms. "Why'd you do it?" he asked quietly. "She missed too many shifts," Veronica whispered. "Her mother was dying. I had to, right?" Rick didn't answer. They reached her building. Doorman buzzed them in. Rick walked her to her door. She fumbled with the keys, hands trembling. Rick gently took them, unlocked it, and stepped back. Veronica leaned against the frame. "You're not going to judge me tomorrow?" she asked. Rick met her gaze. "No, but I'll remember." She gave a crooked smile. "Fair enough." And then she did something that surprised them both. She reached forward and squeezed his hand. "Good night, Rick." He turned and left. What she said the next morning, though, that's what changed everything. Rick got home just past 1 a.m. The apartment was dark, save for the soft glow of Ellie's nightlight. He tiptoed past her door where she lay sideways across her twin bed, one sock halfway off. He didn't have the heart to wake her. He just sat in the kitchen, poured himself a glass of tap water, and stared at the sticky note stuck to the fridge. "Dad, can I bring cookies for Miss Harper tomorrow?" He smiled faintly. That's what mattered. The next morning, Rick was at the office by 7:45. He didn't expect anything. No thanks, no awkward conversations. That was fine. He just hoped she wouldn't bring it up at all. But by 8:15 he got a message. Veronica Dane, conference room B, now. Rick blinked. That wasn't how she usually summoned people. She didn't summon him at all, actually. When he arrived, the blinds were drawn. Veronica sat at the table. No coffee, no laptop. Just her. She didn't look embarrassed or angry. She looked clear. "I owe you two things," she said. "First, thank you for last night." Rick nodded slowly. "You're welcome." "Second," she continued, "I owe you a correction." She slid a folder across the table. Rick opened it and stared. It was his file, but rewritten, retitled, Director of Community Development. Veronica nodded. "Effective immediately." Same pay grade as Eastman. Bigger team, more flexibility. Rick blinked. I don't understand." Veronica folded her hands. "You said something last night. You're a person. That shouldn't have struck me as profound, but it did." Rick said nothing. Veronica continued. "I've been treating people like chess pieces. But last night you saw me. Not the COO, not the boss, just me." "I don't want pity," Rick said gently. "You're not getting any," she replied. "You're getting recognition, long overdue." He looked at the file again. "Why now?" She looked him in the eye. "Because no one else would have driven me home, and no one else would have let me talk like that without using it against me." There was a pause. Then she added, "I checked your file. You haven't taken a sick day in 2 years. You clock in early. You cover for others. You mentor new hires. You do it quietly." Rick shrugged. "Somebody has to." "Well," Veronica said, standing, "now it's somebody in leadership." He opened his mouth, but she cut him off. "Before you argue, you're taking the offer. And before you say you can't manage the hours, the position includes remote Fridays and flexible scheduling." Rick chuckled softly. "Ellie'll love that." Veronica paused. "Ellie's your daughter." 7 going on 30, he said. Veronica smiled. "Bring her by sometime." Rick's eyebrows lifted. Veronica held up her hands. "Not like that. We're doing a family outreach event next month. I want her to see where her dad works now." He stood, still dazed. And then she said one more thing, the part he'd remember most. "You didn't drive me home," she said. "You reminded me where home actually is." That night, Rick sat on the floor with Ellie, eating boxed mac and cheese and watching cartoons. "Did you have a good day, Dad?" she asked. He looked at her. His little girl. The reason he kept pushing. "Yeah, kiddo," he said. "Best one in a while." And in his chest, where fear used to sit, something new began to grow. Hope. The next week brought changes Rick could feel. People stopped overlooking him in the hallway. Colleagues who never learned his name now paused to greet him. Someone even brought donuts to his desk, unprompted. Ellie noticed too. "You seem taller," she said one morning over breakfast. Rick laughed. "Maybe I'm just standing straighter." Veronica kept her word. At the family event, she knelt beside Ellie and complimented her glitter sneakers. She remembered her name, brought her cookies. When Rick saw that, something in him relaxed, not because he needed validation, but because his daughter was watching. And she saw respect. At home that night, Ellie said, "Your boss is kinda cool." Rick smirked. "She's working on it." As they tidied up the living room, Ellie found the new business card in his coat pocket. "Director," she read aloud. Rick nodded. She grinned. "So, you're the boss now." Rick raised an eyebrow. "Let's just say someone finally realized I always was." And for the first time in a long time, he believed it. On Sunday evening, Rick took Ellie for a walk through the old neighborhood. They passed the corner store where he used to buy instant noodles between paychecks, the cracked sidewalk where she once scraped her knee, and the bench they used to sit on during long job hunt days. Everything was still there, but now it looked different. Not because the world had changed, but because he had. He glanced down at Ellie skipping beside him, her hand in his. She looked up and said, "Do you think things will stay good?" Rick thought for a moment. "I think good things come when you keep showing up, even when no one's clapping." Ellie tilted her head. "Like when I cleaned up the glue spill in art class and didn't tell anyone," he smiled. "Exactly like that." And as the streetlights flickered on, father and daughter walked forward, not away from struggle, but into the kind of future earned one quiet act at a time. The Monday after the promotion, Rick returned to work early, not out of habit this time, by choice. The office felt different now, not because the walls had changed, but because he no longer blended into them. He walked past the same people who used to avoid eye contact. Now they nodded, smiled, said "Morning, Rick," like they meant it. But something deeper was shifting too. Because while Rick had accepted the new title, the new office, even the fresh nameplate on the door, he hadn't yet realized how much power he actually had. That realization, it would come in the form of a whisper from the janitor, and a crisis no one else even noticed. It started with a leak, not the dramatic kind that floods floors or sets off alarms, but a quiet drip behind the breakroom wall on the 19th floor. The kind of thing nobody noticed, except Carl. Carl was the overnight janitor, 60, maybe older, always wore the same faded jacket and whistled jazz tunes while sweeping. Rick had said hello to him for years. Most people didn't. That morning, Carl stopped by Rick's office, something he never did. "Morning, mister." "Rick," he said, voice like gravel and honey. "Hate to bother, but I think there's something wrong with the west wall in the break room." Rick looked up. "A leak," Carl nodded. "Been dripping slow but steady. Figured if I told someone early it wouldn't turn into a mess." Rick stood. "Let's go look." They walked the hallway together, a director and a janitor, side by side. A few people stared. Rick ignored it. At the break room, Carl pointed to the back corner. Rick crouched, placed his hand against the wall, damp, not soaked, but not dry either. He made a note to facilities. "Thanks, Carl. You probably just saved us a serious repair bill." Carl gave a lopsided grin. "Better to fix things when they whisper than wait for the scream." Rick chuckled. "That's good advice." As they walked back, Carl asked, "That your daughter in the photo on your desk?" Rick smiled. "Yeah, Ellie. She's got your eyes," Carl said. "That's a lucky kid." Rick paused. "I think I'm the lucky one." Later that day, facilities confirmed a slow pipe breach behind the drywall. Would have flooded within a week. Rick flagged it to Veronica with a simple note. Carl caught this. "Just thought you should know." She replied 10 minutes later, "Noted. Schedule him for an employee spotlight. We need more of that." A week passed. Rick adjusted to his new role. He had more meetings, more emails, more visibility. But the real shift was in how he listened. He remembered what it felt like to be overlooked. Now, he made a habit of walking the halls, not to supervise, but to notice. That's when he spotted Nina in the copy room, head down, tears in her eyes. He didn't interrupt, just walked past, looped around, and returned with a cup of tea. No questions, just presence. She looked up. "Thanks," he nodded. "You don't have to explain, just know you're seen." She took the cup, hands trembling. "Most people don't even know my name." "I do," Rick said. "And if you need to step away, I'll cover your report." She blinked. "You're serious," he nodded. That afternoon, she left early. The next day, she was back, clearer, calmer. She slid the report onto his desk with a thank you note paper clipped on top. Rick didn't mention it, because quiet kindness doesn't need a headline. The next Friday, Rick brought Ellie to work. She wore a yellow dress with pockets and carried a clipboard like she was on a mission. Veronica met them in the lobby. "Good morning, director and mini-director," she said with a smile. Ellie giggled. "Do you have any snacks?" Veronica grinned. "I'll see what I can do." They gave Ellie a tour, the break room, the big glass boardroom, even the secret rooftop garden where executives took their private calls. Ellie stopped by Carl's janitor closet and handed him a drawing. "It's you," she said proudly. Carl looked at the crayon-sketched version of himself, broom and all. "I look like a superhero." "You are," Ellie said. "You fix things." Carl choked up just for a second. "Thanks, little one." But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, a fire alarm cut through the building at 3:37 p.m. Not a drill, smoke on floor 14. Most people evacuated in a rush. But Rick was in the stairwell when he saw it, a woman struggling with a walking boot and a cane. No one stopped. No one noticed. He rushed to her. "Lean on me," he said. "We've got time." Together they descended slowly, floor by floor. By the time they reached the lobby, fire trucks were already arriving. No flames, just smoke from a faulty panel. No real danger. But Rick hadn't left anyone behind. Later that night, Veronica called him. "Security caught the footage," she said. Rick braced himself. "You stayed," she added. "I couldn't leave her." Veronica was quiet for a long beat. Then, "That's why you're exactly where you need to be." By the end of the quarter, Rick wasn't just a new face in leadership. He was a new kind of leader, the kind who remembered names, the kind who answered his own phone, the kind who brought extra cupcakes to the team meeting because someone always gets left out. Ellie noticed, too. At bedtime one night, she asked, "Do people at work like you now?" Rick paused. "Some do. Did they not before?" He shrugged. "Not sure they saw me." Ellie nodded sagely. "Then you must have turned the lights on." Rick blinked out of the mouths of babes, and then came the bonus meeting. Year-end. Veronica stood at the front of the room. Team leads. Executives. Department heads. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to recognize someone." She turned to Rick. "2 months ago, Rick drove me home from a party. I was not at my best. He never brought it up again." Murmurs in the room. Veronica raised a hand. "That night he reminded me who I am and who we all should be. Quiet, steady, human." She stepped forward, handed him an envelope. Inside, a bonus. A real one, 5 digits. "Life-changing," Veronica added. "This is for being the kind of leader I hope to be." Rick swallowed hard. "Thank you." Ellie's photo sat on his desk when he returned. He looked at it, then at the envelope, and he smiled. Because now they saw him, really saw him, and he would never go unseen again.